Good afternoon. I am Julie Rowine, the president of the League of Women Voters of Concord Carlisle. On behalf of our league, I would like to welcome you to this forum for candidates for the Concord School Committee. These candidates will appear on the ballot for the local Concord election on June 11th. Our moderator this afternoon is Elizabeth Foster Nolan. She is a member at large of the League of Women Voters of Massachusetts and serves on the board of directors of the state league. Since our founding in 1920, the League of Women Voters has worked to foster civic engagement and enhance access to voting. The League is a nonpartisan organization and does not support or oppose any candidate or political party. I will now turn the meeting over to Elizabeth Foster Nolan. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Beginning of every forum, we just like to remind the candidates as well as the public who is watching this what the rules are for the candidate forum. Each candidate will have up to 1 minute for an opening statement, and then we will move on to the questions. I will ask candidates the questions, and each candidate will have up to 2 minutes to respond. There will be a candidate who will have the question first, and then we will alternate who has the question first. All questions were chosen and written by the League of Women Voters of Concord Carlisle. They solicited questions from members as well as the public. The questions were chosen for relevance and edited to be concise and unbiased. So if you did submit a question, your exact question may not be asked, but it was taken into consideration when forming all of the questions so that we made sure that there were, as I said, concise and unbiased questions for those individuals running for the school committee. So right now we are going to be starting with the school committee, and this is for the candidates for 1 3-year term on the Concord School Committee. And we have Mary Beth Cusick and Fatima Mezdad who are running for this position. And we will start with our opening statement. And Ms. Cusick, you are first with your opening statement. You have 1 minute.
Great. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, and thank you, Julie, and thank you to the League of Women Voters of Concord Carlisle for putting together this forum in this unusual time. You know, I was very excited for the actual live forum where I get to see folks and engage with folks. This is a little bit strange to be talking to a screen, but here we are. This is the reality that we're in now. I'm Mary Beth Cusick. I moved to Concord about 5 years ago. I currently have a 3rd grader and a 1st grader at the Thoreau School. Actually, now I am their virtual teacher, working with them at home, which has been some unique challenges. Before coming to Concord, I lived in the city of Boston, where I was the chief of government services for the city of Boston, where I was a lawyer, working across multiple different departments, including with the Boston School Committee. So I think I will bring a lot of good career experience, as well as experience as a parent of children in the school system. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Ms. Mezdad, you also have 1 minute for your opening statement.
Yes, thank you for having me. And I would like to start with I would like to start with a quote that was on the middle school announcements a few weeks ago that said, "You cannot be the best until you have seen the worst." And I'm thinking of our school district and our community. We have been one of the best and strongest school districts, and we are going through very difficult times, probably the worst. And the hope is that we all come out stronger and better as a community, as a school district, our students, our teachers, parents, administrators, as a stronger community working together. So that's hopefully the silver lining of this pandemic. So about me, I've lived in Concord for 5 years now. I have 2 sons in the school district. Next year, they will both be at the high school. In the 5 years that we have lived here, we have experienced 3 levels of the district, from elementary all the way to the high school.
Ms. Meddad, your time is up, but thank you very much. We will now move on to the question portion. And Ms. Mezdad, you will go first with our first question, and you will have 2 minutes to answer this question. Why are you running for school committee?
I am running for school committee to continue the work that I have been doing in the district, and it's funny, it feels natural to join the school committee to continue in a more formal way. My hope is to help the school district with my perspective, I think my unique perspective, especially one of our goals in our 5-year plan is inclusion on so many levels, and I think that I can be very helpful in that area. And I also have about 30 years of academic experience, different educational systems that I can bring to the school committee, and I will hope will benefit our community.
Ms. Cusack, the same question to you.
She's no longer.
We are all back, and so this is the first question. So, Ms. Cusack, why are you running for school committee?
So for me, I think it's very important for the Concord School Committee to have strong representation of parents on the school committee. I think we're a very important voice. And I have always been very active and civically engaged. My whole career was in public service. When I first moved to Concord and my first child was in the Concord Integrated Preschool, I helped to form a parent group there, was co-president of it. We worked actively to raise funds and build a new playground at the preschool. Then when I moved on to the Thoreau School, I became the parent-teacher group president there. I've worked actively in Thoreau. And so I've been working my whole adult life really in the public sector. And when the opportunity came to kind of take it up a level and move from just the parent group to really working on a district-wide level, I just couldn't resist that. As I said in my opening, I think I bring a lot to the table, both as a parent of kids here in Concord and vast background of municipal experience. And I would just love to take both of those skill sets and contribute to the community in which I live. And so that is primarily why I would like to be on the school committee.
Thank you. Our next question, Ms. Cusick. How would you approach current spending plans and fiscal planning for the schools, given the unknown impact of COVID-19 on the school district's fiscal condition and on Concord's taxpayers' ability to pay taxes? You have 2 minutes.
Sure, I think that is really the key critical question right now. As we talk about all the different variables that we need to look at for the phase 4 of learning in the fall and beyond, even into the spring, a big open-ended question is going to be how we are going to fund that. Right now, as we all know, we haven't had town meeting. We don't have a new approved budget. Right now, we're just working under sort of what they're calling kind of a 1/12 budget of last year. That is automatically in place for the Concord district and needs to go through some approvals for the regional district. But that aside, I mean, even if we have that placeholder budget in, we don't really know exactly what all the different costs are going to be in the upcoming year. So I really think it's the critical way to deal with this is just to have constant communication, constant gathering of data, constant talking to the community about what the priorities are, to make sure that we are able to provide the academics for our children, support their social emotional help, support the parents who are playing a larger role in the new schooling system, all with unknown costs and with a decreasing taxes and so, you know, it's really, really challenging, I think, right now to navigate through this reality and so many unknowns. And so we just have to constantly be looking at the data, talking to the state, talking to the parents, working with the teachers, and just trying to do the best we can under these unprecedented circumstances.
Thank you. Ms. Mesdad, you have 2 minutes.
Yes, so I do approve and agree with the approach of our school committee, our current school committee, to run on a budget that finances our district on a monthly basis until we do have our town meeting and a budget for the school year. That is going to be based on the cost of the previous year. And the challenge is going to be funding the rest of the school year, because it is different from last year. The budget was based on different circumstances. We may not have access to the same resources that we had last year, and that's going to be a difficult conversation that will have to involve, again, members of the community, and how to work in light of a budget that might be reduced because of the pandemic and all the economic downturn that the pandemic has brought about. But I do have faith in our community to come together as it has in the past and continue to provide quality education and to equip our teachers with the resources that they need to continue doing their job. And I have to acknowledge that our teachers have been phenomenal, again, having to improvise new working conditions, and our children who have had to learn to work from home without their classmates, without their teachers, without their school environment. So we are going to have to come together and work under the new circumstances.
Thank you. For the next question, we will start with Ms. Mesdad. In the planning for the new Concord middle school, how important is it to you that this building serve the needs of the broader community?
It is very important that the new buildings serve the broader community, and my belief is that every child matters. When we are planning anything from a lesson to a building, to a school building, we need to keep in mind, as we have been, that every child matters. So we do agree on that. Where we disagree is how to get there. I don't think that we put one student over another. Again, the challenge is to gather the needs of every single child and every single family. And we have so much parent involvement that I do have faith that it's going to be possible. So inclusion is one of my priorities. And by inclusion, I mean all different aspects of a personality, whether it's neurodiversity, whether it's cultural diversity, whether it's socioeconomic diversity. We need to keep in mind all those layers of diversity when we are thinking of our next middle school building. And again, the circumstances today have put at the forefront another need that we didn't know we might have, is the ability to switch to online learning when the need arises, like it has since March. So that is going to be very important. Special needs also are at the top of my priority list, making sure that every child feels as valued as the next, no matter what their disability is. And again, working as a community to figure out what that is and how we can best serve every student is going to be our task going forward.
Thank you. Ms. Cusick, Same question.
Thank you. I think that with respect to the process of designing and building a new Concord Middle School, I think it is important not only that we put the primary focus on the needs of the middle school students, but I do think it's vitally important that we also consider the broader needs, and that we design the building with the idea that it could be used broadly by the entire community. And I think that if we're going to add that, all community, we should really look at ways that everyone can benefit the school.
Ms. Cusick,
Yep.
just sorry to interrupt you, but you're fading in and out a little bit. I'm not sure whether you can be closer to the microphone or if it's.
Yeah, I can try. Unfortunately, I'm getting I'm still having computer issues, and I'm getting a indication that there's audio quality from my internet connection. So I will try to get closer, and hopefully it'll work. Should I just start the answer from the?
Yeah, we'll start with the question again for Ms. Cusick. In the planning for the new Concord Middle School, how important is it to you that the buildings serve the needs of the broader community?
Okay, I think that when we are working on designing and building a new Concord Middle School, I think it is vitally important that the building serve not only the primary educational needs of the middle school students, but should also serve the broader Concord community. It will be no doubt a big price tag. It'll be a huge ask of the community to support this new building. A new building is needed, but I do think that when we're designing and building, we should take all the community's needs into perspective. I do think that the school district recognizes that, and the town recognizes that, which is part of the reason why they have paused the whole process. Which is unfortunate. That we've had great momentum, a lot of community input on the building, but right now they're pausing it, and they are going to wait and hit the restart button so that the whole process can be driven by all the input of all the stakeholders, which is incredibly challenging to do in the current circumstances.
Thank you. Our next question, beginning with Ms. Cusick. Again, regarding the new middle school, what is your view on balancing costs versus proposed attributes and design of the building, given that state funding will not be available for this project?
Well, again, I think it's going to be a huge price tag no matter which way we look about it. And I do think, we're going to get input from a lot of different people. Everyone's going to have different perspectives, and different priorities will have different price tags. So that is going to be a process where we're going to have to just come together, collaborate, build consensus on the very best school we can get that is fiscally responsible. We could have all the bells and whistles, but that would be too big of an ask for the community. With respect to the state funding question, though, I'm not, I do think in the long run, there are a lot of benefits to doing it on our own without the state funding. I do think it's a slower process with state funding, which can drive up the costs. Just waiting for state approval takes a period of time. And with every delay in actually getting shovels into the ground, you're going to see escalation in construction costs. So I do think from sort of a bigger picture perspective, it will be a more fiscally responsible project if we go it alone. Understanding that, yes, on a per taxpayer basis, each household will probably see more out of their pockets than if we did get state funding. The other thing to consider, though, is when you're working with the state, they have a lot of parameters over what you can build and how you can build it. And if we have the flexibility of going alone, we can really look at what the students need and what the community needs and design the building accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mesdad.
Yes, so it's all about the balance between the budget and the best school we can get. So yes, we will work to have the best school that we can get without overly taxing our residents, especially the seniors, for whom it is already difficult to stay in their homes as they're aging in when housing is so expensive and the taxes are so very high for someone who's on a fixed income during retirement. So we will we will need to keep that in mind and explore different ways of funding this project. And also, yes, we did not go with the state funding, and I thought that was a wise choice because it frees us from all the restrictions that come with state funding. And also, on the other hand, as a town, we can afford to fund our own building in comparison to other towns in the state that are so much less fortunate than we are in Concord, and that do need that state funding in order to support their education in their towns. But again, we are going to be leading by example. We're going to be teaching our children fiscal responsibility. Yes, we can continue to have a thriving school district with cutting edge technology as long as we can afford it.
Thank you. Our next question will start with Ms. Mesdad. What approach will you advocate the school committee take to ensure an open public process for school committee meetings while protecting public health during this COVID-19 crisis?
I do applaud the current school committee for really taking quick decisions and improvising in light of a very fast changing world. I mean, we've seen as soon as we establish a pattern to function, it changes the next day because the circumstances have changed. So I do applaud our school committee for finding solutions very quickly. So the format that they have adopted, I think, has been working and has been tweaked and improved each time, and that's how we're going to learn. It is crucial to keep public access to the school committee meetings and make it easy also to contribute to gather public input before the meeting. And so that's going to be important. That's the spirit of citizen government, is to involve the citizens, and again, staying safe, running those meetings from the safety and comfort of their homes, using the technology that is available to us, while inviting the public to be part of the decision making.
Thank you. Ms. Cusick, same question.
Great, thank you. I agree wholeheartedly with Fatima's position that the current school committee and the current school district has done an incredible job of ensuring that all of their decision making is quite transparent and that they are getting input from all the relevant stakeholders in this strange new reality. It was such a quick, abrupt shutdown of everything that I think they were kind of, building the airplane as they were flying it. And I really have no criticism for how they have done it. I think that there are challenges to the Zoom format and the webinar formats. And I think that they are doing an incredible job under those circumstances. Same with the school district. Dr. Hunter has been having virtual meetings every Friday. She has formed a new task force that she had a public forum on Zoom for, and has immediately the day after posted it online so that everyone could view it, and the school committee is doing the same thing. As we move forward and we can uncover new ways to foster more community engagement while at the same time socially distancing and being safe. I think that the district and the school committee will continue to try to be on the cutting edge of how to be as transparent and engaged as possible while still being safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cusick, we'll start with you for our next question. In your opinion, what role should the school committee have in supporting Concord's 4 sustainability principles to make Concord a more sustainable community?
I think that it is vital for the school committee to take those goals into perspective with all of their decisions. I think that with the opportunity of the middle school building, that is one area where I think we can really try to focus on sustainability. Now, that does come with some of the sustainability factors in a public building that can increase the price tag. So I do think, you know, there has been talk about making the building sort of net neutral ready, and I mean carbon neutral ready here. I'm talking about net neutrality, pardon me. You know, and so I do think that it needs to be a driving consideration for all the decisions that the school committee makes, especially when it comes to the large building projects like the middle school. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mizdad.
Yes, our goal is to, in our education system, is to raise the best citizens that we can. And I think one very efficient way of teaching our children that is leading by example. We can talk to them about efficiency, about sustainability all we want, but if we're not practicing it, it may not work. I think so. If we lead by example and do honor those principles of sustainability that our town has embraced in everything that we do, and again, it goes back to affordability. As long as we can afford it, and we do have to exhaust every resource available to us so that we can protect our environment and still offer the best education, the rigorous education that we are offering, and instilling these values of sustainability in our children, in our everyday life, the way that our schools are run, the way that we deal with waste or with energy and our food. All those things need to be taught in our classrooms with our behavior, with our own way of respecting the environment and working for sustainability.
Thank you. Ms. Mizdad, our next question. What, if any, is the role of the school committee in relationship to school curricula?
The role of the school committee is not to be involved in the curriculum. That I think would be micromanagement, and I don't think that the school committee gets involved or should be getting involved in the curriculum. Our job, however, is to hire talent that will enable us to have the best curriculum, the curriculum that suits our student population, the curriculum that suits the diversity in our community, and the curriculum that is going to raise, again, those global citizens that are able to have empathy for every person, and that comes through, again, the curriculum, what we're teaching our children. So the role of the school committee is an indirect role. Our job is to hire a superintendent who is highly qualified, whom in turn will support the teachers. And I really like that we have created so many new positions to support our staff, to support our principals, and we have a director of learning who is really phenomenal and highly qualified, and our work ethic, our work philosophy is one that is improving and that is inducive of creativity, of reaching the best curriculum that we can. So that's the job of the school committee when it comes to the curriculum, is really offering the support to the talents that we hire.
Thank you. Ms. Cusick.
Great, thank you. I think if you're looking for a real divisive, combative candidate forum, you're not going to find one here. I think that I pretty much agree with everything that was just stated. You know, I really do think that the school committee needs to keep, you know, sort of 10,000-foot level on everything. We're here to, you know, oversee broad policies, to really focus on the budget, and to make sure that the budget that we are approving best supports the superintendent, the administration, the teachers, so that they can really provide the curriculum that is needed. You know, I do think that we have a role in sort of accountability in making sure that the administration, you know, is rowing in the right direction and adheres to, you know, what their stated goals are and what the stated policies are of the district. But it really is a light touch. It really is an overseeing touch, and you really do need to let the superintendent, the administration, the principals, the teachers do what they are hired to do, and really support them, and again, keep them accountable, but primarily support, and not interfere. It simply is not our role. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll be moving on to our last question before closing statements. And we will start with Ms. Cusick. What are your thoughts regarding revamping the delivery of special education services while still complying with state and federal requirements?
So I guess I could take a two-part approach to that question, because I'm not quite sure if we can do sort of short term right now while we're dealing with this pandemic and with the sometimes you know, lagging guidance from the state, shall we say, on you know, what we need to be doing. I do think that special education is being particularly impacted by this pandemic. That is not to fault the administration or our special education providers. This is just particularly challenging, I think, for those students. And I do think we need to find some new approaches for that. I do like how in phase 3, there has been more direct providing of services to children. And I would like to explore how better we can improve upon that in phase 4. You know, and then beyond that, I do think that we, you know, in the longer term, I do think the district also needs to focus a little bit on some new approaches to special education. Again, I think the district is doing the best that they can under the circumstances, but I do think that we do need to explore some new ways to service those really special population of children. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mesdad.
Yes, so we have been doing very well in serving our special needs students, and there still is always room for growth. And we have been relying on the Wested report that was done a couple of years ago that has assessed and evaluated our special education program and has made some very strong recommendations. And I think that again, to support our district has taken the right measures in solidifying the special education program throughout the district and creating new positions, creating leadership positions to facilitate communication between general education teachers and special needs teachers, because if they don't work together, then we're not serving our students. And I think I'm really starting to see the progress, and I am very confident that we will get to a point where we are serving our special education students and families in the best way that we can. And what better way to help these students than to working from a strength-based place, really working with their strength in order to overcome the areas where they are struggling. And I think giving them the confidence that they can achieve anything that the next student can, I think is going to be key in us supporting our special education families and students.
Thank you. We will now move on to closing statements, and each of you will have 2 minutes for your closing statements. And we will start with Ms. Mezdad first.
So for my closing statement, I am going to talk a little bit about how my background, my cultural background, informs my thinking about education and my actions and my goals, my aspirations. So I come from a faith that teaches that our differences, our individual differences, help us grow together. We're created different so that we may know one another. I think the key word here is know. So once we really start putting inclusion at the forefront of our goals, we really offering an opportunity for every student to know different cultures, to know different learning styles, and that gift of knowledge, right, is invaluable. What better gift to give our students and our community than the gift of knowledge? And knowledge is power. So that is where I come from when it comes to inclusion. And I would also like to conclude by reading a no, I will stop there because I won't have time. So if you could edit that part. I was going to read the poem, but I won't have time.
Thank you. And now Ms. Cusick for your closing statement.
Sure, thank you. Again, I'd really like to thank the League of Women Voters of Concord, Colorado for putting this together. So much has changed since I first decided to throw my hat in this race. This is an incredibly unusual time. I think how we approach school committee is just so unknown in this upcoming academic year, but I look forward to being part of the solutions. I really do think the current school committee and the administration has done a phenomenal job with phase 1 through 3. And I look forward to joining the school committee and really working on phase 4. I really do think my skills as working in the city of Boston will really help me be a valuable contributor to the school committee as we just go through these uncharted territories. I really think we're going to have to provide sufficient concrete plans on what the school year will look to give the parents and students sort of a sense of what to expect, but we're going to have to be nimble and we're going to have to be able to turn on a dime as this just continues to unfold. And I really look forward to being part of the discussion with the parents, with the teachers, with the administration, with the community on how best to move forward and provide the best academics for our children, the best social emotional support for our children, support for the parents, and just really try to make the best of what we can in this unknown climate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now going to move on to the second portion of our forum, and that is there will be basically an interview with questions for Alexa Boland Anderson, who is a sole candidate for a 2-year seat for the school committee. So we will start again with opening statements, Ms. Anderson, and you will have 1 minute for an opening statement.
Thank you, guys. Thanks so much to the League of Women Voters for organizing this. This has been a real joy running for school committee, and I'm so glad that when the original in-person forum was canceled in March that we were able to get this put together. So I have been a Concord resident for nearly my entire life. I grew up in Concord. I am a product of Concord K-12 public education, and I'm so proud to be running for school committee. All 3 of my children are in the public schools. I have 3 children currently at Willard. My eldest will be going to Peabody Middle School next year. We also were at the Thoreau District for the first, I think, 5 years of my kids' public education. So I have been fortunate to experience 2 schools at this point. I've been involved in every step of the way at both of those schools. At Thoreau, I served as the vice president of the PTG at Willard. I am currently its secretary. And
thank you. Sorry to cut you off.
I can't see the timer either.
Ah, okay.
So, and not because, I think it's just because of the way everybody is, you know what, I can maybe change that. Yep, I just can scroll. I can see it now. So that's.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that.
We will move on to the questions. And our first question is, why are you running for school committee?
Sure. So again, in my opening statement, I talked about the fact that I am a product of our K-12 education here in Concord. My children will be in school here through high school. And I feel like this is a great opportunity for me to become a more instrumental player in the educational legacy of Concord. It's, again, one I'm proud of. In 2018, I think in Lori Hunter's first or second year, she put together a long-range planning committee. It was comprised of administrators, teachers, parents, stakeholders in the community in general. And we came together for 6 meetings over the course of a half a year to put together some short and long-term district goals. That process to me was incredibly rewarding and valuable. It gave me real confidence in the vision that our school district is going to be taking in the next 5 years. And when that committee came to a close, I thought to myself, I would really enjoy being a part of overseeing and collaborating in the implementation of those goals that I was a part of crafting. So school committee certainly is the absolute best vehicle for me to do that. Are you muted?
Sorry, next. How would you approach current spending plans and fiscal planning for the schools, given the unknown impact of COVID-19 on the school district's fiscal condition and on Concord's taxpayers' ability to pay taxes?
Yeah. So again, I think that we are in an unprecedented time where for the first time in sort of our school district's history, we are, in the short term anyway, putting health above education. Lori Hunter actually talked about that this past week in her first public COVID task force meeting. And, you know, that makes us sort of reshift our priorities. So I think for the first time, we are going to have to reshift some priorities with how we are spending our budget, how and the things that are going to be supported in that budget versus what has traditionally been supported in that budget. And I think the good news of it all is that Concord town residents are always highly civically engaged. We have a really strong finance committee. We have a really strong school committee. Both organizations are incredibly transparent and are incredibly committed to gathering diverse community feedback. So my feeling is, as we struggle to put together budgets for both the short term and the long term, I do feel confident that we will gather the input of the diverse Concord residents to really create a path forward that is sustainable, affordable, and within our means.
Thank you.
Sure.
In planning for the new Concord Middle School, how important is it to you that this building serve the needs of the broader community?
So I attended so many of the public forums that the current administration put out last year. And what I learned going to many of those meetings is the public really spoke loud and clear that if we were going to put together this building, that of course the priority in sort of what we put together for those building plans should be the students and the learners inside that building. No doubt, no one would ever, no one would ever say that was not the priority. However, what's been really interesting is the fact that we are likely not going to receive state funding has provided us with an opportunity. So state funding, as everyone well knows, puts severe constraints on what your building can look like. One of the things, for example, is they put size limitations on things like theaters or cafeterias or the ability to have a gym. The result of which is, you can't always customize your building to meet the needs of the broader community at large. And what we kept hearing in these public forums was that if we're not going to go with state funding, we have an opportunity to really make this building serve the broader community in ways like perhaps making an area large enough to host town meeting. The public high school doesn't do that. Maybe recouping some finances by having gym space or theater space that could be rented out so that over time we can recoup some of those things. And again, I think that that's just a really neat opportunity that we wouldn't otherwise get.
Thank you. Regarding the middle school again, what is your view on balancing costs versus proposed attributes and design of the building, given that state funding will not be available for this project?
Again, I think that we have the opportunity, due to the fact that we can make this building something that really does work for the entirety of the community beyond just the middle school learners. Everything is always a balance, right? We talk about things that we want, we talk about things that we need, and then we talk about things that we can afford. So I think that when you take those three pieces, it's kind of like putting together a jigsaw puzzle. So we really need to balance those three sort of buckets: what we want, what we need, and what we can afford. And again, I think that the wonderful thing that this administration has done is take their show on the road to gather that diverse input from everybody, whether it's parents, whether it's seniors. So we are really able to put together those three buckets. What do we want? What do we need? And what can we afford? And I really have confidence that we have the best players in this administration who will be able to really put together the right building for the right price.
Thank you.
Sure.
What approach will you advocate the school committee take to ensure an open public process for school committee meetings while protecting public health during the COVID-19 crisis?
Yeah. So, again, this all happened so fast. I remember being at my kids' school on March 12th, picking them up, still being on the campus when Dr. Hunter's call came in saying that we were going to be out of school for, I don't know what it was, I think at the beginning of a week, right? So in the intervening time, I, as a parent, have been incredibly impressed with this administration's commitment to full-blown transparency, and really and truly exceptional communication to the public. I do think that, as awkward as this all is, Zoom has been a really compelling forum. And I think the school committee has done a great job of making their meetings public via Zoom. People can watch and participate. They get things immediately online, the minutes. They're easy to access and easy to read. And I also think that even things like we're doing now, where we can continue to partner with prominent organizations in town, whether that's the league, so that we can use their platforms to distribute information, or we spoke earlier offline, all of us, about Living Concord. They have, a diverse group of people that use their newsletter. Senior facilities, I think, are another great way to just continue to be open and transparent and hyper communicative during this time. And to date, I will say I've been really impressed.
Thank you.
Sure.
In your opinion, what role should the school committee take in supporting Concord's 4 sustainability principles to make Concord a more sustainable community?
Yeah. So again, as someone who's lived in Concord as an adult, a voting adult, for over 20 years now, Concord always speaks loud and clear that sustainability is a priority. I think that in the 20 years that I've been back here as an adult, you can cite numerous instances at town meeting where that is communicated. So again, I think I'll go back to my answer before. We have to take things that we want, sustainability, things that we need to educate children and what we can afford. And then we need to balance those things accordingly to get to a place where we can all be very happy with the results. And I will say, in these public forums, it does come up again and again. This building, if we can afford to make it so, should be as green as possible. And again, because we've tried to group in all of these diverse constituencies in these public forums, I know that sustainability is going to be, in some of the top priorities in there. So I do trust that we will come to probably a really good balance. Do I think it will be perfect? Probably not, because I think it'll be so incredibly cost prohibitive to do so. But do I think it'll be pretty damn good? Probably.
Thank you.
Sure.
What, if any, is the role of the school committee in relationship to the school curricula?
Sure. I'm gonna piggyback on the answers of the 2 previous candidates. I mean, again, I think this is really an instance where the school committee puts, the lightest touch possible on curriculum matters. I am lucky enough to have served on a number of different committees with Kristen Herbert, who is our director of curriculum, and she really is spectacular. She stewards this district by adopting really innovative ways to balance technology and collaborative learning. And again, all the school committee should really do in this instance is ensure that the superintendent is putting together the best collective team to steward the overall arching goals of the district. And so far, we're in a good position. And my feeling is, as a school committee, it's to ensure that the best people are in the roles and then sort of rely on their expertise. And that's probably about it.
Thank you.
Sure.
For your last question before your closing statement, what are your thoughts regarding revamping the delivery of special education services while still complying with state and federal requirements? Sure.
So, it's been really interesting being a parent in 2020 or 2015, whatever. I am continually amazed on how much insight we now have into the diversity of the learners in our district. We have medical tools. We have professionals now who dedicate their entire careers to really figuring out how different kids learn. It has truly, as a parent with no medical background, blown my mind how specific we can get with respect to implementing programs and curriculum and ways of interacting, with the curriculum, with these kids. All of those sort of ways and pathways and curriculum, I think, are all emerging. I think this is a place where we really will continue to grow, learn, and evolve. So I think that there's tremendous pathways for growth there. I also think, too, Concord has always been a district that takes the federal and state guidelines. Generally, we nail them. We meet those guidelines really well. And in my experience, generally we exceed them. And we really adopt things that we can customize to our own needs here in Concord. And I think this is going to be another area where we can continue to do that. But there is room for growth, and we will continue to evolve.
Thank you. You
Sure.
will now have 2 minutes for a closing statement.
Sure. I am really looking forward to the opportunity to work with the school committee. Like I said, I really felt deeply involved in the long-range planning committee that Dr. Hunter put together in 2018. And I remember feeling unmoored when the long-range planning committee sort of came to a close. And I really do feel that being on school committee will help me to be a part of implementing those long-term goals. My husband is from Concord. I'm from Concord. We moved back here even long before we had kids, God knows why. And we are so excited and proud to have kids in this district. This district served us both so well. I do feel ready to give back in the capacity as a school committee member, in ensuring that Concord's deep legacy with educational excellence continues. And I do feel like the current administration has all the people and players in place to continue to move that forward. And being a part of that for me would just be an incredible joy. And I'm ready for the challenge.
Thank you.
Sure.
We have now come to the end of the 2 parts of this candidate forum. And first of all, I would like to thank all of the candidates for joining us in this virtual arena. It is new for everybody, and we do really appreciate your flexibility and your willingness to join us so that we can get the information out to the voters for the election. I also want to thank the League of Women Voters of Concord Carlisle for hosting this candidates forum and putting this together so that it could be done and distributed as widely as possible prior to the election. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank our technical coordinator, Peggy Wergelin, for making sure that this all worked out, and to our timer, Judy Zimbracher, for making sure that you guys knew what was going on. And then, of course, to Julie Rohan from the League for helping to coordinate this also. I want to remind the voters that to vote in the June 11th town election, you must be registered to vote by June 1st at 8 p.m. We encourage everyone to vote early by mail. Voters can request an early voting ballot by submitting a request by mail, fax, or regular mail to the town clerk. You can go to the town website to learn more about how to vote by mail. There will be one polling station at the Concord Carlisle Regional High School, 500 Walden Street. It will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on June 11th for those individuals who wish to vote in person. Again, I would like to thank everybody and remind everybody to please vote. And as we love to say, democracy is not a spectator sport. So please encourage everyone you know to make sure they're registered to vote by the deadline of June 1st and to vote on June 11th or early by mail. Thank you very much for participating with us.